everyone. Welcome to the KE Report and a company update from FireFox Gold. I am chatting with Patrick Highsmith, Chairman and co-founder of FireFox Gold. This is a more drill results recap and update as the company has been busy releasing drill results. 2 rounds of drill results back in January, 2 rounds of drill results in February, and the most recent round from February 25th is where I really want to focus. I am going to be posting a map of the project or where this drilling has been occurring that came from that last news release, so you all get an understanding of what Patrick and I are talking to here. Now, Patrick, that most recent news release, the headline says you drilled the second best ever gold intercept at this Mustajärvi project. This project is in Finland at the Lapland Greenstone belt. The number being 7.6 meters of 32.25 grams per ton gold. Patrick, explain this comparison of the other drilling and now this hole 12, please.
Well, hello, Corey. Good to be with you again, and thanks for the recap. Yeah, great news release. And, we put that headline in there for a reason. We've been working on this project really since 2018, Corey, mostly through bad markets, as you well know. And one of the things we wanted to remind people of is this is a tremendous hole. And on a standalone basis, that's 7.6 meters of 32.25 grams is the second best intercept we've drilled in terms of multiplying the meters, the width times the grade. That's the second best intercept we've drilled. But in actual fact, it's the fourth best drill hole, Corey, because what we often see at Mustajärvi are more than one highly mineralized interval in a hole, often 7, 9, or 10 meters thick or more. And these things stack and they add to the sort of weighting of a drill hole in terms of its total width of mineralization multiplied times grade. So this hole, for instance, is a 300 gram meter hole, and we've drilled 4 of those on this project. We've drilled one hole that was 410 gram meters of grade thickness, and we mentioned that in the release because it also has the richest single intercept we've drilled, 13.85 meters of 28.74 grams per ton. I guess it's semantics, Corey, to differentiate such good holes. But what happens is we did this work in 2022, tough market, but not a receptive audience. You can't fight the market that much in this business. And so we put out some great news. Our market cap, sort of languished. But importantly, Corey, we kept the property. We grew the property. We added tenements. We believed in this property. We added quality shareholders. We consolidated our shares. And most importantly, we kept our team together and through those tough years. And now Mikko Neninen, our exploration manager, has just done a tremendous job with this program. As you mentioned, every news release since October when we started announcing has contained some really positive drill information. And this one is a real zinger. As it happens, hole 5 in this program, which I think we announced in January maybe or December, it was slightly better in grade thickness than this hole 12, but it just had multiple intervals rather than one really whopping interval. So, call me a nerd for wanting to differentiate these drill holes, but that's how we got with that headline.
Okay, let's look at that map then, because this hole 12 is really kind of in this gap area. You have a lot more drilling to the east and a fair bit more drilling to the west, but really the east is where it looks like you have many more holes. But then there's also this hole 10 just to the left, just to the west of this hole. But that was the news release prior in February 9th. That didn't hit any mineralization. Can you explain maybe what was going on here?
Yeah, great. Your keen eye there for news releases, Corey. And my geo and I were just talking about making a cross section to look at those holes because what happened? 2 things. First, Mikko is managing this program on the fly, and there's a paved highway there that you can see that we drilled under. This intercept is directly under the highway, which is great. But also, there's a cabin there, like a vacation cabin. And in Finland, of course, the mineral rights don't belong to the surface owner, but they have rights, of course, and we have great relationships with our surface owners. So Mikko had to locate these holes in a way where we weren't, too close to his house, his cabin, or maybe couldn't drill in his lake on his property. So hole 10 was not ideally situated, but we tried to reach that fault. If you see the dashed line on the map, we've interpreted that to be a fault coming somewhere through there. And you can see 500 meters away on that fault some gold on the north side of that map. But down here where we are, we set out to drill across that structure, not knowing exactly where it was. And it turned out that two things happened. One, hole 10 ended up sort of paralleling the fault more than crossing it. And so it never hit this zone of brecciation and things we expect to see when we cross a fault. And furthermore, because it started to the north and we're chasing the mineralization, which is dipping south, and the drill hole is plunging south, so it ended up sort of undercutting the most attractive zone as well, Corey, depth-wise. So when we didn't hit strong mineralization in 10, we did feel like we were kind of close, and hole 9 nearby did hit. Mikko went back to the drawing board, redesigned a hole to go to the other side of the highway, where we could drill under the gentleman's cabin, under the highway, and ripped into this great zone. And we were on the right side of the fault. And actually, a little further down the hole, we hit the fault. So this is kind of above that fault or to the east of that fault. And hole 10 just didn't make it across the fault, Corey. So it's a geometry problem. And good thing for us, we had another at bat, as they say in baseball, and we were able to hit a home run after all.
Yeah, no kidding. What a different result that is. But as I said, there's not a whole lot of drilling around this area. So is this going to be a priority as this program continues to drill in? Let's just call it this gap zone.
Well, we do call it the gap zone. I named the press release Narrowing the Gap when I first was naming it. And so we went into that hole. You can see, again, if you look at the geophysics there, there's a lot of green color. That green color over to the east has meant high-grade gold coming to near surface. And so we're happy to be in that demagnetized zone in the magnetics. And it does open things right up, Corey. First of all, it fills that gap between the northeast and the east zone, implying that if we continue to hit in that zone, whether in the shallow portions or the deep portions of this interval, we could end up having a better chance of connecting the east zone and the northeast zone. And that area, we've got high-grade gold identified for 1.1 kilometers of strike along this Mustajärvi shear zone, shown in the heavy dashed line there. And this does fill in the gap, and it does suggest there's a lot more room around it to drill in that magnetic low that you see there along the highway. And then 500 meters north, just follow that dashed line. We've got gold coming to surface up there, and there is zero drilling before this drill program, zero drilling between where we are and the gold at surface 500 meters away. And as you know, with orogenic gold, I'm always talking about faults and plumbing for the fluids. And that's what we think is happened here, is this corridor has opened up not only along the trend, filling in the gap, as you say. There's room for more holes there, which we will certainly fill in, but there's also room on this crossing structure that heads up to what we call the triangle target further north.
Okay, before we get into that triangle target, just a little bit more color. There is a scale bar at the bottom of this map, but explain to us now what you've drilled currently here at this target. What's the strike length, and what about the depth component? If you're hitting some of these stacked systems, what does it look like depth-wise?
Yeah, what made the east zone important and why those initial big 300 gram meter holes I mentioned were so important is that mineralization came practically to surface over there in that cluster of holes you pointed out to the right-hand side of the map. And that zone, we've been able to confirm, does plunge back to the southwest. So from sort of upper right to lower left on that map, we've chased that gold now. And if you measure that, there's over 450 meters of strike length that we've been drilling gold in the east zone. So we're still filling in a little bit on the southern side, but the upper right is fairly well filled in, as you can see. We added just a bit in these most recent holes over there in hole 13 and hole 15. So a decent result there as well, extending the zone out to the upper right. So east zone, something like 400, 450 meters defined. I would say, broadly speaking, Corey, we have mineralization from surface down to 100 meters, a nice lode there sitting in the east zone. And then down below about 175 to 250 meters, there is a second volume of mineralization on the south side of that east zone that we've not fully delineated yet, that appears to be continuous and to have grade. So that gives us lots of room to drill still on the right-hand side of the map to complete that. Then we had this gap For a couple of reasons. We picked up ground on the south side of this map. Corey, that shaded gray area is a new acquisition for us of an exploration reservation, which will become a permit ultimately. It is right now, we can't drill on that ground yet, but we hold the ground as an exploration reservation. We have exclusive rights to it, so that's good. So we didn't drill on the southern side for that reason. But now we filled in that gap and we're going to be able to drill north to the triangle zone and continue to the southwest. And there you see hole 9, which was a very nice step out that we did announce earlier in February, where we did hit a nice zone indicating that that northeast zone keeps coming. So when you add that up, if we're able to continue to connect, you would have a footprint of more than 1 kilometer, about 1.1 or 1.2 kilometers in a northeast southwest direction. And the depth of hole 12, this intercept was from 172 meters down hole, the best part of this intercept. That's an angle hole, so maybe that's 140, 130 meters vertically below surface. And I would say that's kind of a medium depth for Mustajärvi, Corey. It looks like it's kind of between maybe a down dip continuation from the stuff to the east, but it, of course, is well above the deeper mineralization on the south side of the system. So again, we see this stacked impression, these lodes having some continuity in the southwest direction, but plunging, getting a little bit deeper. But still, we're really in what would be open pit mineable depths quite easily. To have this kind of grade at less than 150 meters vertically below surface could be very attractive if we find a lot more of it, of course, and that is our intention.
Now, I want to talk a little bit more about grade because, look, grade is impressive across the board. Even that last hole we were talking about, over 32 grams per ton gold. There's also a high grade component in that of 188 grams per ton gold. But then we look on the map, we look a little bit further east, and you're hitting some longer widths of 9 grams per ton, even down to 7 grams per ton. But that's over 11 meters. Is there a consistent grade that you're seeing through here? Or are there pockets of these higher grade areas and then these other high grade areas just not as high?
Yeah, it's all relative at Mustajärvi. You can see the 4.8 gram rock chips, 500 meters north there. We haven't even had time to get up and drill that yet. We don't consider that high grade here, even though it comes to surface. But look, grade is king. It always has been, Corey. It always will be. And Mustajärvi, if it has one thing, it has produced grade. As I look at our scheme of drill results, and I compiled, the top 10, top 15 holes we've been drilling, for this press release, it's absolutely commonplace for us to drill intervals running from sort of 7 grams per ton to 15 grams per ton over significant widths, not just narrow runs. So it is a characteristic of the deposit. We see it up and down the structure. Everywhere we drill, the first important results we announced in 2019, Corey, from this project were 2 meters of 45 grams. And that was 2 kilometers from where we are now to the southwest. So the answer is what you're observing is real and consistent. And what you don't see are long runs of low grade, Corey. In one of these holes, I think it was hole 10, as a matter of fact, I wrote in the press release that we observed, kind of a long run of weakly anomalous gold. And when that happens, Corey, it's often been a near miss for us, meaning there's grade somewhere around there and we're just on the edge of it. And because it just wouldn't be typical of Mustajärvi to see a long run of low grade. We do have, half a gram to 1.5 gram mineralization over several meters, but it's generally punctuated by higher grade or flanking higher grade. So that is a characteristic of this particular discovery. And orogenic gold as a whole, many of the highest grade deposits in the world have been orogenic gold deposits. And we hope one day Mustajärvi posts a resource number that lives up to that reputation. It certainly looks like we're going in a positive direction, drilling grade like this, year in and year out.
Okay, let's get a recap of the drill program then. How many holes have you released so far in the program? How many are drilled? And how much more drilling is there still to come in this current program?
At Mustajärvi, we have completed 30 holes. The drill took about a 3-week break. It's coming back in March to continue drilling at Mustajärvi. Of those 30 holes, 15 have now been announced. So we've still got, 15 holes completed, not yet announced. So that's already sort of money in the bank. We've already spent that money and results are coming, which is great. We have sufficient funds to keep drilling into May. We also drilled 3 holes at Sarvi, where we also announced a high-grade intercept, the first high-grade intercept at that property, which is over to the east of here, about 30 kilometers, next to Rupert's Ickery project. So I would say, Corey, if you take a look at it on a meters basis, we're probably about 65% done with the drilling of on the low end, we projected we would drill at least 10,000 meters, Corey. So we're doing very well. We are on budget. The drillers are incredibly consistent. They deliver the core at a very fair price. And the program is going really, really well without incident. So we'll certainly get 10,000 meters. Our intention is to keep drilling and for results to justify that. And right now, we're funded to keep drilling for another couple of months without really hesitating, Corey. So more results to come, and 15 of those holes are already drilled.
So as you keep drilling, let's tie in this triangle target. You mentioned it a few times. It's on that map that I've posted below the interview. When are you going to get up there, and what's the strategy to get up there?
Yeah, pretty neat. And you'll see that gap as your eye follows that dashed line up to the north. You cross over a high voltage power line there, Corey. There's so much infrastructure up here. It's great. So that's just an easement or a right of way for the power line. That's not a gap in our tenement. So we'll get up there quite soon. That structure is going to get drilled. Miko has a plan to put holes into that. We did do a channel sample, kind of a small trench up there. It's on the edge of a swampy area. So we just had a little bit of outcrop. You always hear me say there's very little outcrop in Finland, and that's true. But there's one area there where we had a bit of outcrop. And we do believe that structure is real. And we've kind of maybe hit the southern end of it with hole 12. And so in this next phase of work, it'll be late March into April, but we will certainly get holes into that triangle target. And you can kind of envision how we might approach that, drilling across the structure, moving up from hole 12. We put some additional holes there. We work north, and then we try to undercut those 4.8, 3.8, 4.4 gram rock chip samples to the north there. So definitely will happen. I would say we'll be in that area before mid-April. So more news to come for the spring.
So Patrick, one final question then. I want you to compare what you've hit so far at Mustajärvi, even tying in that Sarvi project, to some of the peers maybe in this Finland area, in the Lapland Greenstone belt. Because currently the company is about a $28 million Canadian market cap. You've clearly hit some high grade here. You're not nearly as advanced as some of the other, let's say, Rupert Resources and some of the other players in that area. But what kind of comparisons should we be drawing to some of your neighbors in the area?
Well, we are in that pre-resource phase, as are the other sort of 4 juniors in the belt. Corey, you've got ourselves, Orion Resources, which is trading at 8 times our market cap, or 7 and change times our market cap. Valkia, similar market cap, more newcomer to the belt, a pre-resource, and Finmetals, similarly pre-resource. So if you compare to pre-resource companies, it's always hard, right? Well, what makes an explorer valuable in the market? And look at the team. We're here in Toronto this week. We've been at the Red Cloud pre-PDAC event. We're headed to PDAC on Sunday. And we meet with a lot of investors, and for many people, it's about meeting the team. We have our exploration manager here, Carl, our CEO, and myself. And so the team's really important. Then you got to look at the projects, obviously. And I would say that just to mention that Sarvi result, to the casual observer, drilling 1.75 meters of 27.5 grams, only 70 meters below surface, wouldn't be that big of a deal on a standalone basis. But it's another project in which we have core drilling with plus 20 gram intercepts, and we happen to be adjacent to Rupert's Ickery project, with 100% owned project right next to a 4 million ounce project that's advancing towards feasibility. So the neurology is really strong, and yet we're pre-resource again. So, ability to execute, putting the money in the ground, drilling the meters, and I encourage people to look at drilling like we do. Look at grade thickness. Look at the ability to repeat quality intercepts on a property and see where we stack up. I think we are a heck of a value at a 28 million market cap right now. And with the quality shareholders we have, long-minded shareholders, and we're repeatedly hitting high-grade gold now on more than one project. So we'll get back to Sarvi in this drill program as well. We continue to advance more than one project, Corey, just because you need more than one horse in the race over the long term. But we think we're on to a discovery at Mustajärvi, and we have announced in our press releases our intention to put forward a mineral resource estimate there. And we're aiming for the end of this year or first quarter of 2027. So it won't be very long, and folks can see that we believe this resource does hang together, and we believe the resource will represent that and may differentiate us further from our peer group.
All right, Patrick, great chatting with you. Thank you for the update. Again, Patrick Highsmith, chairman and co-founder of FireFox Gold. Company is traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol FFOX, on the OTCQB under the symbol FFOXF, and the Frankfurt Exchange FIY. For everyone listening, please send me any questions you have for Patrick, and I'll get him back on the show as we get some more drill results. Patrick, thanks for the update today.
Thank you, Corey. Take care.